Hello, I'm Braddock Supervisor John Cook. Thank you for watching my news program, Braddock Neighborhood News, which takes an in-depth look at the local topics most important to you and our community. Unfortunately, many of our residents often fall prey to scam artists or devious tricks used to obtain money or sensitive information. Keeping our population, especially seniors, armed against and prepared for scammers is important to our residents' well-being. To discuss the issue of senior scams, I have invited Fairfax Police Detective Ryan Young, AARP Community Ambassador Sheila Hans, and V. Johnson, a consumer specialist from the county's Department of Cable and Consumer Services, to come on BNN and tell us about senior scams and how they can be prevented. I want to thank all of you for coming on the show today. Appreciate you taking the time to be here. Sheila, I thought I'd start with you. You are a community ambassador for AARP. Tell us what that is.
Well, a community ambassador wears a lot of hats. We man tables at health fairs. We go to job fairs and man tables. We also do presentations in libraries to organizations, to professional groups on fraud and other topics of interest for AARP members.
And you're a volunteer?
Yes, I'm a volunteer.
And so that's part of the volunteer opportunities that people have at AARP?
Oh, there's a lot of volunteer opportunities with AARP. We have about 40 volunteers. And they're always welcome to come. We are always looking for new volunteers, and they usually try to match you with something that you like to do. And we have a wonderful leader that gives us a lot of opportunities to do what we want to do, when we want to do it, and how we want to do it.
That's great. So you're at home. We will come back to volunteerism so you can sign up to be a volunteer as well, because that's an important part of how we address so many things in Fairfax County, including this issue of senior scams. And Ryan, you see every day your work in the police department. We have a lot of seniors in Fairfax County, great people who have devoted their lives to the community, and then we have these scam artists coming around, and they know how to hone in on vulnerabilities, and your job is to stop them.
Yes, sir. And one of the good things that the county has done recently is authorize a task force to go after this very problem. So working with our regional partners and really trying to tackle this problem hard.
And so how do you go about the prevention part?
Well, I think one of the components that I'm excited about is the education phase. So we have to get out there and educate people on these scams, educate people how to recognize them. And it's not just those that fall prey to the scams. To me, more importantly, it's the neighbors, the family members, those that are watching over. You know, everyone, I would argue, knows who your vulnerable residents are, because statistics show that the aging population is increasing and they're choosing to stay in their homes. So we all know who those people are, and a big part is educating the neighbors as well, so they can take action if necessary.
I think that's a great point, because so often when we're talking about these scams and we're saying, oh, we need to talk to our seniors and we need to get them so that they can defend themselves, and all of which is important, but that focus on us being good neighbors and recognizing that it's not for us to say, oh, it's too bad Mrs. So-and-so down the street fell victim to that contractor scammer, but that we can help our neighbors as well. And we're talking about all types of scams here, from the tree contractors and the home repair contractors to email and online and all sorts of stuff. And V, you see that every day in the county's Consumer Affairs Office.
Yeah, we do. One of the great benefits that we offer is that Monday through Friday from 8 to 4:30, we have what we call the Consumer Specialist of the Day. And what that means is that anyone can call our office and speak with someone live and in person to talk through whatever situations they may be experiencing. The other day when I was on the consumer line, I received a call from a consumer who had received a letter in the mail asking them to mail some money for a prize that they had won. And they were quite suspicious, but they were still kind of excited about winning. So we kind of talked them through the situation. Where did the letter come from? The letter came from Canada, and I set kind of a red flag. And I asked them, when did you enter the contest? And they're like, well, I don't think I did. So we kind of talked them through the situation, and they came to the realization that it was a scam. So what we did at that point is we referred them to the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, because that's who handles any type of fraud through the mail. And they felt a lot more comfortable. We let them know that anytime they get anything suspicious, whether it's on the phone, it's in the mail, anywhere, then just give us a call and we'll be happy to talk them through the situation and connect them with the agencies that are able to help them to move through the situation. Like Detective Ryan said, the most important thing is we want these these older consumers to recognize the scam so they can avoid them, and we also want them to be comfortable reporting the scam, because the only way to stop a scam is to report the scam.
And the ARP also has a Fraud Watch network, and you can call that number and they will tell you all the scams that are going on in the area. If you're not a computer literate and you want to have, you can call them and they can send the message to you by phone, or you can go online and there's a little flag and it shows your area and the related scams, and they tell you, different people talk about the scams that they've experienced. So, and if you think you've been scammed, you can call them and they will talk to you about it, find out what you've done, send you to the appropriate person to figure out what you should do next, and they alert you to what's going on, the latest scams, because they're always changing.
And you're right, that is true. We see these, they sort of circulate through, I guess, the country or the community, and so they come around, and then when one has kind of gone through and I guess gone as far as it can go, then the next one comes through. And part of that, Ryan, you see that with the door-to-door contractors. They're always there, but there's a whole lot of different types of door-to-door scammers. How do people differentiate between the legitimate, vendor, salesperson who's trying to offer a service versus the person who's just a scam artist?
Well, I think at the core of that is solicitors in general, and a lot of times what I say is that most legitimate business people, companies, are not going to be going door to door to solicit work. Most of that legitimate work is coming word of mouth or advertising or whatnot. So, some of my most egregious cases with the contractors that come to the homes will start by a solicit door to door. Maybe you need some trees trimming, whatnot, and if the suspects in the case find that they have a vulnerable person to work with, they'll progress to maybe more jobs, quote unquote, within the home, and the money skyrockets from there. So I guess my answer would be, keep in mind that the county does have laws against solicitors. They need a license. It's a placard about yay big, and it has the person's photo on it, expiration date, even fingerprint, what company they're with. And citizens have a right to ask for that. And if a homeowner has a no soliciting sign posted, it's automatically a violation whether you have a solicitor's license or not to solicit on that doorstep. So I think if people can realize that maybe they shouldn't take business or accept business from a door-to-door solicitor, maybe seek referrals, family members, friends, maybe get your work done that way.
V, that's a good point with the license, right? I mean, that companies are allowed to apply for a license and then have those salespeople come in, get a license. The bad news, supposed to wear that. What's that look like, and kind of why do we do that? How do we run that program?
It's important before someone's going to be knocking on anybody's house in Fairfax County that they pass a criminal background check, and that's what that licensing part of that process involves. You have to have a criminal background check done, and you have to show that license to show that you've passed through that particular process, because we want consumers in Fairfax County to have a certain level of security. Now, we also encourage them, because just like with anything, they're always impersonators. So if someone comes to your door, first of all, you don't have to open it. That's your first line of defense. You can just, if you don't recognize the person, let it be. But if curiosity gets the best of you, ask for the license and compare the picture on the license with the person in front of you. Look to see what the expiration date is and make sure all of those things are in place. If they say, oh, I left my license in the car, then immediately in the conversation, ask them to leave your premises and contact the police department, because that would be a violation.
And that's, and Ryan, we see it's hard enough even with licenses, and we have issues, but without it, we see also as the scams. Talk a little more detail. I know tree trimming's a big one. A storm comes, and then the next day it seems like there's all sorts of people out on the street. Sometimes it's legitimate. You've got a branch hanging, it needs to come down, but you can really be taken to the cleaners if you're not careful with some of the roofing, tree work, siding specialists.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be any type of disaster, really. I mean, these suspect groups are trolling through communities every day, and some people think it's just, you know, spring, summertime, but every year round, these suspect groups are trolling through communities, and they may have legitimate work if they can get it, but if they find a vulnerable resident throughout their travels in the neighborhood, a lot of times they'll latch on to them and like I said before, progress to more contracting type jobs within the house, and a lot of it becomes fraudulent. Some of the things we see is your roof is leaking, and they'll put water on insulation and bring it down to the homeowner and say, see, this is proof you have wet insulation, etc. So, you know, when they progress that far, if they find a vulnerable resident, then a lot of times any work after that is just sheer fraud.
So they're actually cycling through, getting an initial job in one area, and then somebody else coming through associated with that person.
Well, a lot of times it's the same group, you know, and that's not common either. You know, typically a tree trimming service, that's what they specialize in, that's what they do. But these scam groups, oftentimes as it relates to the contractors going door to door, if they do find the vulnerable citizen and they progress into the not so legitimate work, then they'll also go into the fraud with the other, you know, they can squeeze more money perhaps with saying that roof work needs to be done and our attic, you know, insulation repair needs to be done, as opposed to just tree trimming.
And you know, we're talking a lot about prevention, but let's just kind of, you know, follow this through. Let's say, you know, somebody is taken, and they realize after, you know, the same group has come through 3 times to work on the roof, and they've spent $10,000 or $20,000 or more, and they start to suspect they've been scammed. They should call, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The first call should be to the police department, have a police officer come out, assess the situation. And one of the things that I'm trying to prepare myself for is, you know, scour those police reports, because they can be classified different ways on our level, but as long as it's documented some way, my hope is that I'll be able to find it, look more into it, see if indeed there's a fraud angle to it, and investigate it to the best of my ability.
Sheila, you know, since we're talking here about the door-to-door sales folks, and so what does ARP, you know, say? Do you have a similar message, and how are you spreading that message to
So
people?
we advise people not to answer the door to people that they don't know, because often these people are trying to do a fraud scam on the person. And also to, if they do answer the door, and get their card and make sure that they have the license, similar to what's been said before. And then to check around with the Better Business Bureau and make sure that this is a legitimate person, a legitimate organization, because sometimes these things can be masked. The license look real. I mean, you don't really know what a license looks like. And the other thing is, often they'll ask for money up front. And that's one of the things that we say, please don't give any money. When the project's over, you can give money. That way you don't have to worry about it, because many of these people will collect the money and you never see them again. They're coming back with their supplies in a day or two, and that's the end of it. So, and as Detective Ryan said, there's a lot of legitimate people, so why take someone that's just going down the street? Check them out.
And to go back to the point we were making earlier, if someone's got some questions, call the police, or just even talk to a neighbor or a family member, right?
Right.
Call your kids, talk to your neighbor and say, hey, I've got a bad feeling. Somebody came by here, I'm not sure, but we want to encourage, right, V, we want to encourage our neighbors to help each other.
Definitely. And one of the things we want to encourage people to do, if you're going to decide to do work with someone, make sure you get something in writing. That written contract is so powerful, because a scam artist doesn't want to put anything in writing. They want to just tell you something so they can get money, and then they can disappear. So that will always be one of the red flags. You always want to ask them for a physical address. If they can't provide you with a physical address, then that's another red flag. Another thing to do is to ask them for a phone number, and make sure it's a working phone number and it's connected to a real person, because sometimes you'll find out with a scam artist, they're not going to give you any type of information at all. So you want to just kind of take your time, think through the situation, and like's been already suggested, get references, go to people that you trust, and take your time, because the scam artists try to emotionally get us involved in a situation, or rush rush us to try to make us make very, very bad decisions. So we want to take our time, get referrals, get it in writing, and make sure we're asking the questions.
You could ask for insurance, insurance certificate. It gives you a little third-party
That's correct. Insurance,
verification.
make sure they're bonded, these are things. And also, if they are a licensed contractor, they have to have a license through the Department of Professional and Occupational Regulation. We also encourage, if you're trying to make a decision about a contractor, you can give us a call. Again, we're available Monday through Friday by phone at 703-222-8435. And give us some information, and we'll try to connect you with the resources that can tell you, yes, they need a license, or no, they don't need a license, because they may also need to have a home improvement license issued through Fairfax County. So if you give us a call, then we can try to connect you with those resources so that you can make an informed decision.
And that's a good point, because we have different levels of licenses. One is pretty basic, but if somebody's coming through and they're going to do concrete work or a roof or something, they need to have a higher level
That is
license.
correct.
And at least by calling your office, looking it up online, verifying the license, that gives you a check to know that at least this person's in business legitimately.
Right, or if they're not in business, then you know you need to walk away and you
Right.
need to call the police.
Right. So we've been talking about the door-to-door salesperson, and that scenario is well known. But nowadays, email, really big deal. We get more and more of these email solicitations. Sheila, that's something you guys have taken on at AARP, and you warn people about as well.
Yes, that's a really important way that we need to be diligent, because there's so many emails that come and they look like they're the real thing. They look like they come from your bank. They'll be asking, we need to update information on you. And they will ask you for social security numbers, they'll ask you for update information, and people, they look real, they look legitimate. And you get them from Amazon, you can get them from other IRS supposedly, and basically they're all fraudulent, and you don't answer those questions. If you're really concerned about it, and you can call your banking place and say, I received an email and I think it's fraudulent, and I do that a lot. I make sure that they understand that their clients are getting these kind of emails. But the main thing is not to answer anything, because once you click on one of those and put information, the scam artist has information that they can use to scam you further.
Yeah. And if you don't have a relative in Nigeria, you probably don't. And if you get the email, you have to be careful. But that's a really good point, because the scammer, right, and V, you guys look at this, right, can take a logo, can take an IRS, and actually take the legitimate government logo, pop it into their email, do a little splice job, and it looks pretty official.
That is true. One of the high rates of scams are called the imposter scams, because technology has made it so easy where you can't tell fake from real. And those emails that are coming at us, we have no clue. And we really need to take some time, because a lot of times there are some clues when we get an email. For example, if we get an email and it's just addressed to dear friend, dear user, dear supporter, that's a clue. It may be a scam. If there are grammatical errors in it, or if there are misspelled words, then that's another big red flag. That is probably a scam. Anytime they are pushing something that's real urgent, you've got to click now, you've got to get this money now, or you've got to report your information now, that's always another clue that it's a scam. Because a legitimate business, as Sheila stated, they're not going to ask us to verify any personal, financial, or confidential information online. They already have it. So it's just a matter of taking our time, understanding that it's not easy to tell real from fake, but just go to the trusted source, as Sheila stated, call the bank directly, ask to speak to their fraud department, verify if in fact they need to get information from you, and the best way to do it safely.
And that's a good point, that banks, financial institutions especially, never ask you to email a social security number.
No,
Right?
no,
So
they haven't.
you know right off the bat that that's wrong. And but Ryan, we're seeing more and more of that in the police department as well, where you're trying to combat these online scams, and that's hard.
Yeah, it's particularly difficult for local jurisdictions, because a lot of the perpetrators are sitting somewhere overseas.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why one of the reasons it falls mostly on federal jurisdictions to help go after those suspects.
Right. And if you do lose money on some of those schemes, the chances of getting it back are pretty thin.
Unfortunately, yes, sir.
Right. So
And we encourage persons to contact the Federal Trade Commission. That's the nation's consumer protection agency, and they have law enforcement agencies that are able to cross borders and go through jurisdictions, because like Detective Ryan said, somebody could be in Nigeria, they could be in Australia, they could be anywhere. So that's why whenever you're a victim of a scam and it's outside of the area, you want to notify the Federal Trade Commission and let them know so they can try to put law enforcement agencies in work to try to help to stop the scam.
you know that's a great point, because even if it may be difficult to get your money back if you've been scammed, you can help others by reporting it, because that's part of what the police are looking at, right? If you're looking for those patterns we talked about before, report. Even if you think, oh, I made a mistake, I'm not going to get this back, you can help stop somebody else from going through the same thing.
That is so true. One of the things I always try to get people to do is look at the big picture. Sometimes people may be embarrassed because they lost some money, or they just think, oh, well, I don't want to bother anyone. Well, I always tell them to look at the big picture. Say, for example, if a scammer were able to get $25 from 40 people, they've made over $1,000, and they're going to continue until they get caught. So that's the importance of notifying the police department, because a criminal's not going to stop until they get caught. So please, we encourage consumers to report the scam, and that way we can try to stop them. Because if you don't report it, then in some ways you're really becoming an unwilling partner to the scam.
And the FTC has a pretty good platform too to make those reports online. Makes it pretty easy, and I've made that referral several occasions with the phone and the email type scams.
That's good. So we want to really encourage that, in asking questions up front, reporting after the fact if need be. And what are some of the common scams we're seeing? And Sheila, we know that they'll change over time, but what are kind of the big ones that have been circulating around?
Well, of course, the IRS one was one of the biggest ones, and it continues to happen, even though it's been going on for several years. The grandparents scam, where they call you up and say that your grandchild is being injured and they need money, and please send this right away. Many people fall for that because seniors love their grandchildren, and they really get emotional, and they get you under the ether, and before you know it, you're thinking, oh, I have to send this money. The best thing to do is get off the phone, call up your daughter, your son, your grandchild, and make sure that 9 times out of 10 is not going to be, I'm sure it's not going to be that they're in any trouble. But they try to get to the heart of people. Their big scam is the grandparents one, the IRS.
What is the IRS scam? Talk about
the
that.
IRS, listen, they send you, I've gotten some very threatening calls myself, basically saying that if you don't give this money, you owe this money, and if you don't give it to them by a certain date, they're going to prosecute you. And they want you to do this, that, or the other, and to get that money in, and it's really scary. And many people do it. I have a neighbor down the street who's an accountant, and she said one of her clients, who's 94 years old, lost over $400,000 in that scam. And these are very common. They happen a lot. People get nervous. IRS is, for a lot of older people, it's like, oh, they're going to come after me, and they're frightened, and they don't remember that they pay, what they paid and what they haven't paid and what they've done, and they just go into your emotional and get to your emotions. So the grandparent scam, the IRS scam, and the Microsoft scam. That's another one where they call you, and as I mentioned before, they tell you about that something's wrong with your computer. They want your credit card. Those are the three main scams that, when I do presentations and you ask people, has anybody ever been involved in a scam, they will mention that they have either calls that relate to that, or they actually have been involved in being having fraud done with them on those particular scams.
Yeah, if somebody calls you and says, I need your credit card, that's almost always bad, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yes, that's a red flag that we just can't emphasize to anyone. You never want to give up any of your financial information, especially if it's just a call out of the blue or email out of the blue. You want to always know who you're doing business with. And if someone calls you, then you just say, look, I'm not going to talk with you now. You go to your bank statement, or you go to the information you already know for that person, and you initiate the call. That's the only way you're going to know. So we've got to keep our personal, financial, and confidential information personal.
Ryan, we'll kind of finish up with you. What are you seeing in the police department? What are the common scams that you're dealing with, and how can we best address them?
Well, some of the door-to-door type scams have been the same for years and not going to go away. I mean, the way the suspect pool sees it is that, to them it's just more aging population. It's not going to go away. It's too lucrative. It's worth it to them. Some of the other ones that we've seen are what we call the distraction burglaries, where somebody may come to your house and if they find a vulnerable resident, they'll lure them outside by saying they're with the water authority or some equal entity and start talking about a property line or something to do in the backyard while another members of the crew go in the house and target valuables. That's another type of crime that I guess kind of relates to this topic.
Right. So we're all going to be careful. You guys are all working hard. I want to thank Ryan, Sheila, and V for joining me today and for the work they have done to prevent senior scams, for helping those who have fallen victim to them. I hope you have enjoyed this segment of Braddock Neighborhood News. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or other needs, please contact my office at 703-425-9300 or email braddock@fairfaxcounty.gov. Tune in next month for another edition, and please remember to volunteer your time. Our community needs you.